A little different video for you guys today. So, working on the daily. It's the 01. Same motor as the truck's got. There it is. So I popped a head gasket on this thing. Could have been avoided. It's fairly built, and I didn't put head studs in it. And I think I lifted the head, and it's pushing compression into the coolant and blowing it all out the expansion tank there. So we got to rip this head off and get a new gasket in there, and I'm gonna have the head gone through and surfaced and everything too while it's off. So let's get started. First thing, yours may be different if you don't have, or if it's stock and you have all the EGR cooler and EGR stuff back here, but mine's completely stripped, so gonna be pretty easy in that part. So first thing I'm gonna take off is all this intake here, this intercooler pipe, intake manifold. I'm gonna pull the turbo completely off because I need to clean the vanes on it, and I only got like 10,000 miles on it, but I think I was getting a little bit of coolant burning too, and it was gumming up those vanes. So I'm gonna rip that turbo apart, clean it. And then, yeah, I mean, basically you just pull the vacuum pump. You can pull this whole water neck off here, and you don't have to worry about pulling all the lines, all the coolant lines off. And then pull injectors, glow plug, harness. Obviously, timing belt's gonna come off. And then I'm gonna pull the cam completely out before I pull the head off to kit. It's much easier to get it around the timing cover. And then I'll show you guys the whole tensioner setup too, how to get that off without pulling that whole timing cover. So let's get started here. Alright, we got the intake off. So before I forget, now I'm gonna drain the coolant, let that drain, and probably pull that vacuum pump. And I need to get that turbo off. I'm just gonna completely pull it all the way out, so we'll get to that too. We got most everything disconnected from the turbo. I just got that oil line off. One important thing to note, so pull both of the mounts off. There's one there, and then there's one right down here underneath that coolant deal. And then I also pull it off of the filter housing, and then just have something. I just got a rubber plug to shove in that filter housing so it doesn't drain the whole thing all over the ground. So pull that banjo off, and when you're pulling this line off, it can be a real pain because the fitting on the turbo likes to spin, and you don't want to twist that line too much because you can kink it, and your turbo obviously isn't going to last with no oil. So what you can do is get a screwdriver in here and hold it against that, because you can't get a wrench in there. So you kind of want to jam that in between that fitting and the turbo, and then usually it pops off. This one was a little tough. It took a few tries, but got it. And then I plugged that line, and just make sure you pull those mounts so you can move this thing around when you pull the turbo out, because you don't want to kink that thing or else you're buying a new line. So keep it all free so you can move it around. So I'm gonna pull the nuts off the head for the turbo, pull that thing out, and then we can get working on. I'll probably pull the timing. I gotta still get it at TDC, lock the pump, pull that tensioner, pull the belt off, pull that pulley off, get the valve cover off, and pull the injectors as well. So we'll get to that. Alright, we got the turbo off, pulled the valve cover, and I'm gonna set the timing at TDC, or the crank and cam. So pretty simple. I go off the crank, 19 mil, and you want to turn it till you see the number 1 lobes here pointed up, both lobes pointed up, and then there's also a window on the bell housing of the transmission to look into the flywheel, has a mark on it. And then you want to lock the injection pump, and then I'll show you guys pulling that tension and everything off. Okay, quick overview of timing. So lobes are up, number 1 cylinder. The injection pump lock pin slides in easily, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but that hole right there, there's that on the top of the casting on the transmission. There's that point, and then there's a line on the flywheel that line up. So if you want to see a more in-depth video of how to time it, I have a timing belt video when I did the belt on this car, so go check that out. So now what we're gonna do, loosen this bolt for the camshaft pulley, then we're gonna loosen the nut on the tensioner and pull all the tension off the belt, and then we can pop this sprocket loose, and then we can pull the cam out. So let's get to that. So I got the belt, tension's off the belt, camshaft pulley bolt is loose. Leave it on there still though, just leave a gap between the washer and the pulley, and then all you need to pull that off. So I have a hole drilled in the back of my cover, you can see it right here. So just get a punch and just come in the back side, and just pop that off. It's just a taper fit on the pulley, so sprocket's loose, so we can pull that sprocket, and then we can pull that camshaft out. Alright, pulling this cam off, I already broke the nuts loose, so you want to kind of go in a pattern here like this, kind of like the it doesn't matter, opposite or same as the torque sequence. Another very, very important thing to note, these caps have to go in the same exact spot that came off and in the same direction, because this is all line board, and if you put a cap in the wrong spot, you might have a too loose or too tight of a clearance. So what I got, I'm going to pull them off here, directly put them up here, line them up exactly where they came off, pull the cam out, and then I'm going to put them back in, just so there's no confusion. So let's get to that. Alright, we got the camshaft out. So next I'm going to pull these injectors, so just pull the lines off, pull the little holders here, and if your injectors have been in there in the head for a while, they might be a little bit of a pain to get out. Some people use a slide hammer. Every time I've done it, you can stick a wrench on this flat spot of the injector where the holder sits, and you can twist it, and that usually breaks it free. So I'm gonna pull those off, and hopefully they come off easy enough. Alright, we got these injectors out. They came out pretty easy because I just actually put those in with bigger nozzles and everything. So got those out, pulled this coolant flange off, pull that other coolant line off the back. And then there's 2 bolts on the timing cover, one here, and then pull your nut off of the tensioner, so it's just flopping there. You can't actually pull it all the way off until you get the head loose. You'll have to have either you can hook up a hoist to the head, lift it up with that, or you can have a helper, someone help you when you lift the head up, have them pull that tensioner off the stud so you can get it out of the timing cover, and you'll still have that stud there, so you'll have to lift the head up and then scoot it out to pull that stud away from the timing cover. So these head bolts are a triple square, and it's a 12mm. So just buy a set. I bought this set on Amazon. It was not very expensive and never broke one yet. They're pretty tough, so pick that up. So bust these head bolts loose, and we'll get the head off.
Pull this out.
Alright guys, head is off. And it looks like right there you can see a little bit of the soot. So that could have been where it was leaking. It's kind of hard to tell. It's on this side. Yeah, right here. So you can still, I mean, you can see a little bit of the sealing surface, but it looks like it was getting, I mean, all that black stuff right there is exhaust soot. So looks like that was the culprit. Like all these other ones are nice and clean around there, and it's still got the black coating on it in between those two ridges. And this one's all, even right there a little bit, you can see a little bit of exhaust. So looks like that's where it was leaking, and it wasn't honestly that bad. It was only leaking under like full boost, so I actually drove it for a little while. Yeah, see, this stuff's just falling apart here. So yeah, that's the problem.